Hello, everybody. My name is Mo Elyas. I'm co-founder of Framing POS, and today I am with my friend Sheila McCumby. Sheila, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Sheila. I have my own consulting firm called Strategies for Success, and I work pretty much exclusively in the art and picture framing industry just to help framers increase their profits and productivity and help you with all the boring the business stuff to help you make a profit in your shop.
Okay, so Sheila has her email at the bottom of her picture. So today we're going to do kind of a role play, if I'm allowed to say that here. And I'm going to be a customer, a frame shop owner who signed up for Framing POS or any other software, framing point of sale software. And then let's say I'm going to call her. I'm going to say, "Hey Sheila, I signed up for this new software. I need to help me. I need to price my glazing, my molding, my mat and glazing." And Sheila's going to guide me through it. I'm going to ask her questions that a frame shop owner would ask, and we'll go from there. Sheila, you up for it?
I am up for it. Let's go.
Okay. All right. So here we go. Hey Sheila, how are you?
Hi, I'm wonderful. Thank you, Mo, for calling me.
So I signed up for Framing POS, and I need
Yeah.
help pricing stuff. So
Okay.
can you guide me through some of that stuff?
Absolutely.
All right.
Now, are you a framer? Are you just starting out, or do you have a frame shop
I have
currently?
a frame shop. I've been in business
Okay.
for, let's say, 5 years, for example.
Okay, great. So you probably have an idea about where your business is going, where you want it to be. How are you feeling about your profits lately? Do you feel like maybe you could bump things up a little bit,
I
or are
can
they
definitely
just
bump it
right
up a
where
little
there?
bit. Yeah,
Okay.
I would
So
like to bump
let's
it up.
talk about that a little bit. And if it's okay, I'm going to give you I have a little kind of worksheet and I'll email that to you too so you can pump your numbers in there. But
Sure.
I think it's good to take a look at those numbers. We don't need to be afraid of numbers. Numbers are our friends. Because then we can make an educated decision about where you want to be and where you want to go and how we're going to get there. We probably aren't going to go from here to here, but we want probably sustained growth
Sure.
in your shop. And so I'm going to share my screen here, and I have a little spreadsheet that I use. I have two of them that we're going to take a look at, and you can see all my messy screen here, but that's okay. And so the first one, before we really decide on what profit margin we want to have, we kind of need to figure out where are we at. Are we making enough money right now with the margins we currently have to keep our doors open? So I have my imaginary frame shop on here, but we probably want to calculate what's our break even point in our shop. And so to do that in my imaginary frame shop, I have all of my kind of fixed expenses. What does it cost me to keep my doors open every day? My
Okay.
rent, utilities, insurance, salaries, subscriptions like a POS software.
The POS
Um,
software is $30, Sheila.
yours is 30. Oops, let me
Yeah.
change that. 'Cause you're a bargain.
Yeah.
And then you may have other variable expenses in there. Sometimes taxes, things go up and down. And you can be much more detailed than this. Again, this is a pretty
Sure.
simple thing. So let's say our expenses are just under $6,000 a month. That's what it takes to keep my doors open.
Can we bump the rent a little bit to,
Sure,
let's say, 3,500? Would that be okay with you?
we could, yeah.
Okay.
That's going to put us in a deficit
Uh-oh.
for a monthly profit
All
if
right.
we do that. But that's good to look at. So at $2,000 rent, when I go through these numbers here, this is going to show. So let's say my average sale or my retail sales for this last month, scroll down here a little bit, was $10,000 and I sold 30 frames.
Okay.
So that if I divide that $10,000 by 30, that means my average sale, um, gross, not net, was about $333.
Okay.
Now, if I subtract all the money I spent on ordering the materials for those frames
Hmm.
and what I took out of my inventory, it came up to about $3,000.
Okay.
And again, these are all imaginary numbers. I realize fully that every month is going to vary. Some are going to
Sure.
be higher, some are going to be lower. But so if I subtract all the money I spent to build my frames from my retail sales, that means that was my net profit subtotal. Now, this is sales, it's not your overall net profit. I haven't subtracted all my overhead from that yet. And so if I divide that $7,000 by the units that I sold, that means that on every frame that I sell, I'm making in profit, the money that's going into the kitty to pay all the other expenses is
Hmm.
about $233.
Yeah.
Now, this is the scary part, after I subtract all of my fixed expenses and I divide that by my net profit, that means in order for me to break even, to make that 58.30 that I need to keep my doors open, I have to sell 25 frames at $333 or more just to break even in my shop.
Oh, wow.
So 25 days out of the month, if I do one frame a day, I'm working 25 days a month just to pay the rent. And my monthly profit after I subtract all these numbers is just a little over, just under $1,200 for the whole
Sure.
month, which if you're a brand new frame shop just opening up, that's fantastic. Hey, you're making money. That's okay. And we can go from there. But that's where if you maybe increased your profit margin just a
Hmm.
little bit, um, then maybe you'd only have to do 20 frames or 15 frames a month. And that's why markups matter. And that's my second little thing here. And so this again is my imaginary frame shop. So let's pretend over here, same things, relatively same numbers, $10,000 a month. My cost of goods is about $4,000 a month. And my break even point, what I need to keep my doors open, is $5,000. So if I add up all of my cost of goods and my break even point, that comes up to about $9,000. That means $10,000 at a 2.5 markup means that I'm walking away with 10,000 or with $1,000 every month. Now, if I extrapolate those figures to a year, that means that my profit for the year is going to be about $12,000.
Hmm.
That's a lot of work when you're working 18 hours a day for $12,000. Now that's at a 2.5 markup. Now, if I don't do anything different but just mark up or change my markup from a 2.5 to a 3 times, now my gross sales have gone up to 144,000. And
Hmm.
if I subtract all my cost of goods and break even point, that all stays the same. Now my net profit is $36,000.
Huge difference.
Huge. And sometimes I get pushback when I talk to folks and be like, yeah, just bump it up. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
people are going to get mad. They're going to walk out the door. So let's just say I bump up my markup to 3 and I lose 10% of my customers. So I'm going to lose $14,000. 10%, one out of every 9 people is going to walk out the door. Even with that, I'm still going to net 21,600 versus
Hmm.
12,000.
Yeah.
So I'm still making more money. And let's say, I think most medium-sized, medium to upper middle class markups, 3.5 should probably be where you should start. And that's my opinion. Again, every place varies and every frame shop is different. Every area is different. Yours may need to be yours, especially Mo, because I know you're in Manhattan. Your rent is way, way, way higher than what you'd have in, some small town in Ohio
Much
or
higher than $2,000. That's for sure.
absolutely. Probably add a couple zeros on there. And here again, if we go to 3.5 times markup, now with everything staying the same, my net profit has gone to $60,000
Yeah.
versus 12,000. That's huge. And again, even if I lose 10%, it's 43,000.
You're making double the 3 times markup, and you're making what,
Yeah,
4 times the
right.
2 markup? That's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you really want to go crazy, you can go up to 3.75 or 4 times. Now
Hmm.
we're netting 72,000. Or if you lose 10% of your customers, you're at 54,000. So this is why markups matter. And this
Hmm.
is also why the other thing I preach in my classes at WCAF is that discounts are the devil. We need to stay away from discounts. Now, if you're a discount framer, different story. But in your average everyday frame shop and in your frame shop, you probably want to stay away from discounts as much as you can. Now, sometimes it's necessary. Maybe you're doing working with a designer and they're going to bring in high volume, high expensive clients who are going to keep coming back to your shop. Yeah, in that case, it might be worth it to do a little discount. But just changing your markup from 2.5 to 3 or 3 to 3.5. And maybe you don't want to do this if you're at 2.5 times markup right now. You may not want to go to a 4 times markup overnight, but you could do that gradually. incrementally every few months. And the cool thing is that Framing POS allows you to do that very easily, to do that little sustained bump up until you get where you need to go, so that especially if you have a lot of regular customers, they're not going to have a lot of sticker shock. Does that
So
make sense?
I like the 3.5%.
Hmm.
Um, me being the frame shop owner that I call for
Hmm.
consultation, right?
Hmm.
Because losing 10%, I mean, yeah, you lose some, but you're still making 43 grand,
Yeah,
which is a nice number.
yeah.
So how do I implement this in Framing POS?
Great. Well, let's go ahead and go into Framing POS. And oops, can you all see my? Oh no, it doesn't want to go in.
I think I lost your screen.
Oops, let me go back in. Sorry. Might need to edit this part out. There, Framing POS. The cool thing is that we can go into our products file, and you want to start with moldings?
Sure. I don't see your screen.
Oops, let me try and reshare that.
Well, Sheila means the products page because we don't use files.
Yep, sorry. Let me share. POS. I love the way that Mo has structured, or Mo, you're the other Mo, that you've structured,
Not the imaginary Mo.
not the imaginary
The other.
Mo, um, but how you structured the pricing, because I think it's very easy to use, and also, but still has some sophisticated elements that I think framers need to use today. If you're still using old school pricing charts or your own homemade little spreadsheets, you're probably not having as much consistency and accuracy in your pricing as you do with Framing POS. All POS systems, I think, definitely are a must-have for any frame shop. If
I
you're
agree.
not using one, you're I almost guarantee you that you're losing money, because there's going to be more pricing errors. You're not getting the updated pricing right away, real time, which Framing POS does a great job with, and you're not having that consistency and accounting for things like shipping and labor, waste. Those types of things need to be calculated. So in Framing POS, Mo's made it really easy. You just come into your products file, and let's take a look at moldings first. So you have all your moldings, and to get to your pricing, you just click on your pricing tab. Super easy. And you have a couple different options as far as pricing formulas. You can have just one pricing formula for all of your moldings, but Mo, do you have vendors who charge you freight and shipping
Oh yeah.
and things like that? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Bella, you got right there.
yeah,
Bella Engelson, I think.
right.
Um,
S-
MPF.
And then are you ordering your frames by length, or do you order them by chop, or sometimes both?
Sometimes both. Generally chop.
Okay, generally chop. Okay, cool. So in Framing POS, we can go ahead and make those pricing formulas tailored to each special case that you have, and then you can have a default formula that applies to everything else. So let's take a look at, maybe let's go ahead to the Bella one. So it's really easy. So I just named this one because I want to have a special formula just for Bella, because they have a special or different freight rate.
Hmm.
And are you finding with your vendors, Mo, that some vendors charge different levels of freight? Some charge a flat rate, some charge
Yes.
whatever, UPS. A lot of times it runs more than what the frame cost.
Yeah.
And so what I recommend to framers to do is take a look at your invoices for the past couple 3 months and see, what is that freight charge,
Ah,
and maybe either come to like a average of that. And some of them are very specific. I know some vendors charge, $12 per frame for shipping or whatever. And then you just add that in there. It's pretty easy.
yeah. I got a vendor. The minimum and all that stuff adds up to like $45 for a small chop. So,
Holy cow. Yeah.
and like you said, the frame itself is like $40 or $50, and I'm paying
Yeah.
double price. So, I
Yeah.
mean, I still like to sell those, but I
Right.
can't take a beating on it.
Right.
Yep.
So understanding your pricing and framing POS is it's actually really easy. So the retail price is going to be your wholesale cost times your markup. And you just need to decide if you're going to be ordering Bella molding or whichever molding that you're doing this formula from. Are you going to order it by chop, length, or join? In this case, we're going to order it by chop. Now you have a couple different options. You can select in here and say, I never want to go below 3 times my wholesale price. And that's going to cover some of my freight. It's going to cover everything. I never want to go below that. And that's okay. Um,
And what's the
sometimes,
zero for, Sheila?
sorry.
What's the zero right next to wholesale cost times 3
Oh,
plus zero?
thanks. Good question. So maybe I want to say wholesale cost times 3, but maybe I want to add in an extra $10 for if it's chop frame, I still have to maybe spend a little time putting it together. Um, and so you can
Unwrap
add
the
in,
packaging, deal with
right.
customer service,
Yeah.
sure.
You don't have waste so much associated with chop frames, but yeah, there is labor involved in putting those chop frames together. Even if you have an underpinner, still takes, you still got to color in the sides, make it look pretty, put some glue in there, stick it in the underpinner, um, fight with it sometimes in a vise if it's being jerk and a jerky frame.
Yeah.
And so this is the minimum price. Say, hey, I never want to go below this. You can also add in what we call a set price to your molding to say, hey, for every piece of molding, again, this kind of supersedes the minimum price, but it's going to say, hey, I want to add in my wholesale cost per foot times a buck and add in an extra buck 25 or multiply that by 1.25. And that's going to help again charge a little bit extra on top of your normal markup. Now, some framers, and again, it depends on your shop. Some framers have kind of a graduated markup where they might have for a cheaper frame a little bit higher markup, and then for more expensive frames a little bit lower markup. So it goes down gradually. So maybe start at um, if your minimum markup that you want to have is 3, you can start at 3 and then go up from there for the cheaper moldings. And you don't want to do too much of a gap. I wouldn't go like 3 or 4, 3, 2, 1, because that's going to cause a pretty big price disparity in there. And
What's
so
your opinion
it would be a big
about
jump.
the graduation?
I
Do
think
you
it
like the
depends.
graduation, or do you like it like the way you have it now is
Hmm.
for any molding, any
Yeah,
size, any cost, just 3 times, right?
right.
What's your opinion?
I think it depends on your shop and
Hmm.
your clientele and what your customers are willing to pay. If you're a very high-end frame shop and your customers are rich and they don't care,
Yeah.
yeah, just do a general markup and say, "Hey, guess what? I don't care what size, you're going to pay the maximum." You can do it that way. I'd say the majority of frame shops aren't that.
Hmm.
They probably need to do, depending on their clientele, a little bit more of a graduated markup. And most markets, they're kind of like a bell curve. So, and the 80-20 rule. It's
Hmm.
kind of the general rule of retail that probably 20%, if you have 2,000 moldings on the wall, probably only 20% of those moldings are making 80% of your
That's
sales.
it, for sure.
And so that's where you kind of want to take that bell curve and hit that sweet spot of the medium priced wherever your median is. Those that's probably want to have where you want to get the most profit out of those
Sure.
because that's what you're selling the most. But this is kind of cool because I can add in a row here and say, let's add a couple, maybe if I can get my thing to go down. Let's add a couple rows in here. So maybe I can say I want my cost range to be anything between 0 and maybe $10. I want to have a markup of 5 on those. And I'm just kind of thinking, the labor takes me just as long to join a chopped, little frame or cheap frame as it does to do an expensive one. And then on top of that, maybe I want to add in a little bit extra for that labor. Maybe I want to add in, $2 a corner, so I can add in eight
Mhm.
bucks in there.
Sheila, so how about if I had a more expensive chop, I add more for the labor because now I'm going to take my time, I'm going to vice it. So,
Sure.
pay
Absolutely.
pay extra attention to that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
So I could say anything between $10 to $15 a foot. Now remember, this is wholesale cost.
Yeah.
Maybe I can have my markup be 4.9, and then I can go from 15 to 20 and go 4.8. So you see, that's where I can go. Maybe I want to go from 8 to 9, and then as they get more expensive, maybe I want to add a little bit just for that extra service fee. And adding just an extra dollar, figure out how many frames do you do a year. If you do 30 frames a month, that's 360 frames a year. Add an extra buck, you get an extra $360 at the end of the year.
An extra
So
10, that's 300
yeah, or
3,000, yeah.
$3,600. Yeah,
It's a lot of money, yeah.
$3,600.
Sure, sure.
Yeah. So just a little changes and little dollar nickel and dime things like that can add up to be big bucks over the year.
And a customer
And
who's paying $350 isn't gonna stop if the price is
no,
$370, right? I mean, uh,
right.
yeah, we're at a different
And
level, yeah.
I read a really good article that Goltz wrote
Mhm.
several months ago, probably about a year ago. I think it was in the Guild magazine for the UK. And he made a very good point. He said, if you tell your customer this is going to cost $500, they're going to clutch their pearls and say, oh my gosh, that's so expensive, but they pay it anyway.
Yeah.
If you told that same customer that same frame is going to cost $400, they're still going to have a heart attack and clutch their pearls, and they're going to still pay that $400. So Jay's point, and it's a solid one, he said, take the extra $100 and listen to their complaints, but I'll take the extra 100. Thank you very much. And I agree with that.
That's funny.
And it's hard too, I think, as framers, and I've done it in my own frame shop, where we kind of have some transference to what I think is expensive. And I got a big wake up call with that when I worked in a gallery here in Las Vegas that catered to very, very, very high end framing. And so I, if work out a price to the customer and be, $2,000 or something, I'd be like, don't hit me. It's $2,000. And they're like, yeah, whatever. And throw their American Express black card at me. And I was like, oh, okay.
And he's got a
2000
Porsche parked in the driveway.
Yeah,
Yeah,
$2,000 is nothing to them, where that's a
sure.
lot of money for me. And so sometimes we transfer our idea of what's expensive onto our customers, and it kind of affects. I think customers can sense when we're not confident about our
Sure.
prices. And so if you say this is the price, and if they're like, I can't possibly afford this, fantastic. Well, let's see what we can do to make some adjustments to make it more affordable. What did you have in mind?
Mhm.
And then you can go from there. But don't be afraid of your prices. And like we said before, if 1 out of 10 of your customers walk away because they think your prices are too high, let them. That's okay. You're still going to make more money with with a higher markup. And so after I figured out all what I want to do in here, I probably add one more row. Now I would go much more detailed in here, but for not to bore everybody. So I'm going to go from $20 up to 999. And then we'll just say we'll say a 4.7, or sorry. I would absolutely expand this more, but for now, we're just going to do it this way.
$20 chop. I want to charge $20 per frame, no? Because
Mm.
I'm being careful, right? It's an average of 10-foot frame. That's a $200 chop I'm dealing with. You
Yeah,
okay with that, right? I
yeah,
mean,
absolutely.
because you damage one all of a sudden,
Right.
right? Sure.
Or if it has those, um, I worked with frames, it was super popular and I loved it and hated it. It had like a piano finish on
Yeah.
it.
Oh my God.
And if you just breathed on it wrong, it
Yeah.
scratched. And oh my gosh, that frame. It was so pretty, but every
And
time someone
fingerprints and all that stuff. Yeah.
every time
Yeah.
someone chose it, I wanted to cry. So I'm just going to go ahead and update this. And now it's been updated. And the easy thing to do now, if you want to apply any of those formulas to your to that specific vendor, you just come in here and select that formula, and then you can apply it. Now you also have a cool thing on here. I think that's coming up, where
Yes.
maybe I'm not buying my Bella directly from Bella. Maybe I'm buying it from a different distributor, and then you'll be able to get your distributor's pricing in there, which is really cool. And there's hardly any other POS companies do that. So this is a really cool thing that
Yeah.
you have in there.
Thank you.
And then you just hit save, and you've got your molding priced. So this makes it super easy. It's probably one of the easiest, most straightforward um, pricing methods to do of any POS system that I work with. And I think it's still, but still is sophisticated and is adding in all the things that you need to add in there. So I love the way that you've designed this.
Thank you.
And so remember, it's important to remember when you're pricing out molding, that's, we're working in linear feet. But when we switch and work on mat board and glazing, now we're working in a surface area.
Oh, let's
So
do
the
mats. Yeah,
Yep, we can do that. And so
sure.
so the math and the kind of the thinking about it is a little bit different. So let's go into, let me just show you real quick. You can still see my screen okay?
Yep.
Let me go into my little slideshow here. But let's talk a little bit about mat boards. So again, when you're calculating
Sheila,
mat
if I ask you
margins,
for a minute, is there a
sure.
little thing that says StreamYard is sharing the screen? Does it allow you to hide it somewhere?
Yeah,
It's
let me
it's
see.
blocking.
It
Yeah,
does
there
say
you go.
hi. Can you see it now? Is that better?
Yeah, because it's covering some of the stuff.
Okay.
Thank you.
Um, and so one thing we want to do, of course, you want to consider those overhead expenses we talked about. And then also, again, think about your brand identity. If you're a discount framer and you're
Mhm.
just buying maybe 10 different colors of mats and you buy them by the box, your markup is going to be way different than a super high end framer working in Beverly Hills. It's going to be different. So and it's important, I think, as a framer to decide what you are going to be. Now sometimes those things may overlap a little bit. Maybe I'm going to be a more residential home decor framer, but I may have a couple discount lines in there. Or I may be like climbing up a little bit. Maybe I'm not a super high end gallery, but I'm trying to bridge the gap there. So I'm going to be maybe semi high to super high end. And then you've
Mhm.
got, your super crazy expensive framers that, are framing, Picasso's every day and super high end art. There people pull up to their frame shop in their yacht or whatever. So you got really rich people.
You know, there's a frame shop in Dubai that does that. I was talking to somebody from the UK who supplies them, and he goes, I went there and I was talking to him. I think if I remember the story, he goes, and we discussed, they made a deal, and he goes, hey, you want to go out for lunch? He goes, yeah. He goes, let's go on my yacht. Then the guy goes on his yacht. So if you want
Yeah.
anybody looking to open a frame shop, Dubai is the place.
It is. I talked to another framer in Dubai and yeah, he offered me a job, but I'm not I don't know if it's so great being a single woman living in Dubai right now.
I think it'll be
But
great. I think it's a nice place.
but but he said, well, and the heat in Las Vegas kills me anyway. But he said, yeah, they have just rich people that don't know what to spend their money
Yeah,
on
yeah.
and they just come in, drop, and they don't even know. Yeah, he's doing great and I'm super proud of him.
Sheila, you get hired and you need an assistant right here.
There
Call
you
me.
go. I know, right? So some other things you want, I know, I'm dreaming of Dubai. I wish I was a millionaire. But labor and shipping charges, again, those are things to calculate in. How much time? Now, also, so Mo, in your imaginary frame shop, do you have a CMC
Yep,
or are you cutting mats behind?
yep.
Fantastic. That's another thing I am going to say. And I realize not everybody can always afford a CMC, but they're making them more and more affordable. If you can fit it one in your frame shop, it just makes you money all day long.
Mhm.
So those are really good things to have. And it saves so much on labor. I had a CMC. I leased it. And I just worked that leasing cost, broke it into days, and just charged an extra $10 a mat. And so if I cut one mat a day, it paid for my mat cutter. And it made me money all day long. I love my mat cutter. You
Sure,
absolutely, if you don't
absolutely.
have one, really, really look into getting it. They can lease them and make them very, very affordable for even just small frame shops. And even if you're just a one person frame shop, it just saves you so much time. So definitely, there's my plug for CMCs. But if you
I
can get
agree.
one,
I second that emotion.
yeah. And the other thing to think about too is waste and storage. How big. What I encourage people to do is like think, how big am I going to keep? Because sheets of mat board. I usually try to say anything less than a quarter sheet, 16 by 20. It gets donated. I donated some stuff to the local high school art department, or I'd put it in a big bag and throw it. knock on somebody's door and do ding dong ditch or whatever, but you got to get rid of it. Um, because it just, my shop was small and it just clutters up and it's hard to keep track of all that, even if you do have a good inventory system. But figure that out. And every time I filled up my dumpster, it cost me, $200 to have them haul it away to the landfill.
Might as
So
well donate it.
yeah, so consider that
Feel
stuff.
good and not pay.
Right. And then the other thing too, yeah, consider, what is your customer willing to pay? I was talking to someone a while ago. They were selling, 6-ply mats, and they were selling them way under the cost of the mat. And it was like for, 11 by 14 or something in a 6-ply, and they're selling for like $20. Well, that mat board costs $70. And they're like, well, they won't pay that much. I'm like, yeah, but you have to order this special. You don't normally carry it.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you, you know, charge a little bit more? Well, they won't pay it. I'm like, well, then that's not your customer. But it's your shop. You do what you want, but consider those things. What is your customer willing to pay? Now, here's a little breakdown, and this is where people get sometimes a little turned around when we're pricing down mat board. And I apologize in advance for going into all the numbers and having a boring spreadsheet in here.
Hey, I called you for that reason, right?
But, I like math. It's my thing. But old school, Vivian Kistler, who's a pioneer in the framing industry, God rest her soul, wonderful woman. But she passed away in 2010, and she was still using, more of the charts and things like that in her pricing. POS systems hadn't really taken off as much when in the years before she passed away.
Mhm.
She just wasn't using them. So she did a great thing and really worked hard and used something called United Inch Area, and you'd have these big charts and graphs and things based on
What's United Inch Area?
the United Inch Area is in addition. So United Inch is something that most framers should know. That's the height plus the width. So I have,
Okay.
some regular just frame sizes here.
Yeah.
So 8 plus 10, United Inch on an 8 by 10 would be 18.
Mhm.
And then United Inch Area, in addition to the area you're using, would be half of that. And she would multiply that by the cost of the mat board and add that into the price. It's a very complicated formula, and I think it's a little archaic to be pricing that way now. I know other framers who, again, this is an old school way, and I'm old. I started framing in 1993. Another old school way of pricing was by breaking it down into frame or to mat board textures. So a suede mat or a fabric covered mat or a 6-ply or an 8-ply, then they would have different pricing structures. The
Mhm.
problem with that is there are some 6-ply mats that might cost $30 and there are some 6-ply mats that cost $80, but you're pricing it based on the lower end. So
Are you
so
recommending to
you're going to
price
lose
based
money.
on the cost of the material?
Right. I think in framing POS's pricing structure, it's based on not only the size, but also you have a couple other things that you can add in there that is a much more sophisticated and comprehensive way of pricing your mat board and more profitable. So, and sometimes when people are pricing out mat board, they get a little freaked out because the small stuff is super cheap and then you go up into the bigger size of the mat board and then it's expensive and you've got a big disparity. So I'm going to show you here. So I added up other people priced by the square inch.
Mhm.
So in a 32 by 40 sheet of mat board, if you multiply 32 by 40, that's 1280 square inches. And so if I take 8 by 10, that's 80 square inches, and divide that by 1280, that means I'm using, if I'm cutting a 8 by 10, that means I'm using about 6% of that mat board. If I'm doing 11 by 14, I'm using about 12% of that mat board, and so on. Now, so this would be, if I multiply that 0.06, and let's say I have a $10 mat, that means my wholesale cost, and I've rounded these up a little bit,
Yeah.
but my wholesale cost on that mat is 63 cents. And if I multiply that 63 cents by 3.5 for a markup, that's $2.19 for an 8 by 10 mat, which is barely worth my time and trouble of cutting it.
So what do I do
And
here, Sheila?
right. And if this is a bright orange mat or something, I've ordered that in and I've just basically given away $2.
And I
It's
work for free.
Yeah, and it worked for free.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can see how that multiplies.
Yep.
So the problem with just pricing based on the wholesale cost is that it's like a teeter totter and it's out of balance. So what Framing POS has done that's very good is that we've added in a few different options, and I'll show you that in Framing POS, where we have what we like to call a minimum price. So all those cheapy mats that we take, if it's, just using a small portion and we're multiplying that little bit percentage of that mat board by 3.5, we can say, you know what, I'm not going to charge less than the wholesale cost of that mat board. If you're doing a small mat, guess what? You're going to pay at least 10 bucks.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a cool thing to add in there. And that's reasonable. You can also do something where you say, hey, I'm going to add in, like we did with the molding, I'm going to add in a little bit of labor, maybe.
Yep.
And if you have a CMC, again, the time difference between cutting an 8 by 10 and a 28 by 32, it's about the same amount of time. It doesn't take much less. It's,
Yeah.
seconds difference. And then I can also add in here what we call a set price. So that set price on top of the labor, that could be, I could add in, and then in addition to the labor, I could add in if I have to pay freight. Maybe I'm ordering, we had to pay freight on Peterborough mat boards. And so I
Mm-hmm.
want to add in just on Peterborough, which you can do that in Framing POS for a special formula and say, hey, I'm going to add in an extra, $8 on Peterborough because I got to pay freight on it.
Yep.
That set price, so this is adding on top of the area of the mat that we're using. We're going to add in a little bit extra. Now some people will add in the whole cost of the mat board, so this is my wholesale cost. Some people add in half the cost of the mat board. It just kind of depends on your clientele, but you can see the difference. So if I take the area of the mat that I'm using plus my labor plus my set price, and this is at a full sheet of mat board, this is going to be my pricing. So that 8 by 10 mat that otherwise I would have been selling at $2.19, now I'm selling at $17.19. And if that's a little too high
Yep.
for your folks, you can do, instead of doing a set price of the full sheet of mat board, you could do 0.5. You can do half a sheet of mat board. So I'm adding $5. So that's going to be $5 less.
Now
So
this
you,
is more reasonable, Sheila.
mhm,
$12 for a
yeah,
mat. I mean, it's relatively reasonable. I'm still making $2 on a $10 sheet.
yeah.
I like I like the column that's right before the next one.
hmm
Yeah.
The
Because now
set
I'm
price.
making $7, right?
Right. And
Yeah.
and I did this in my shop, and again, my shop is different than everybody else's.
Yeah.
And my frame shops were in Alaska, so I had to pay freight on everything.
Oh, I can't imagine. Sure.
And so I absolutely wanted, if I had to order a mat special, I absolutely wanted the customer to pay for that mat. I don't care if they're doing a 5 by 7 or whatever. They're going to at least pay for that whole sheet of the mat board in addition to the labor that it took me.
Mm-hmm.
Now the beauty of adding in, either you can add in the whole wholesale cost or half the wholesale cost of your mat board, is that when I add in the whole price, now I know that any scrap, any fallouts that are usable in my back room are 100% profit. They've all been paid for. They've
Mm-hmm.
been bought. So if I come out again, but am I still going to charge them that 17 bucks? You bet I am.
Yeah.
Um, so, but that's the cost. But my wholesale, it's paid for. So I got 17 bucks out of it and paid for my mat board and made a couple bucks on top of that. But now if I get, and get a bunch of 8 by 10s out of a 32 by 40 sheet, and I couldn't tell you off the top of my head how to do that. I know that's an exam question on the CPF exam, but yeah, now I'm going to be making an extra, 17 bucks every time I cut that mat board, at least, or maybe even a little bit more.
You know what else is there? Once you cut the mat, you got to take it, you got to number it, you got to print a shelf,
hmm
right?
Right.
Customer comes in, you have to design the mat. You're spending time, so all that has
Right.
to be paid for by somebody, right? And
Right. Right.
that is pricing the job.
And storing mats and molding too. Again, it depends on your area and the temperature, the climate.
Yeah.
In Alaska, mat board wasn't too bad because where I lived, it was pretty dry. But yeah, if it sits in your shop for years and years, the mat's going to get faded from the fluorescent lights overhead. It gets shop worn, they get scratched, they get dusty and gross. And I mean, they do have a life. And so, yeah, if you have to store that, and same with moldings, again, in my my area of the country, we have extreme temperatures, and I had a difficult time doing length molding because of that. That they would get warped really, really easy, and so
Yeah.
I had to make sure I kept up on the inventory and kept using up the stuff before it
Yeah. I
got
run
unusable.
a dehumidifier 24/7 in the
Hmm.
summer and spring because
Hmm.
it's so humid. Like my
Hmm.
metal equipment start rusting, and I can imagine the
Yeah,
mats will have the same issue. So, and
right,
that adds to my bill. So all that has to be paid by something.
right.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
those are things you might want to calculate in there and think about, waste and things like that. So using the method that you have in Framing POS, this is going to help you to make sure that you're absolutely making as much profit as you possibly can in your mat boards. And that kind of balances out that little teeter-totter what I talked about before. You're not going super cheap. You have a little bit more of an even curve in your pricing, and that's much more profitable. And so to do that, if we jump over to Framing POS and escape out of here, go back in here. So again, super easy to do. We just come here to our mat boards, and it's divided up into your pricing. And then same thing here. If I have a mat board that I want to add some freight charges to or whatever, I absolutely can do that. Um, And to do that, I have my mat board pricing. So similar to what we did in the molding, I've got my minimum price to say I never want to go below my wholesale cost plus $10 ever.
What if I did 2 times? So, I don't wanna have to sell it for less than what it cost
You
plus
you absolutely could. Or you
so
could
so
say
can I
you
put
could
that
go
as 2?
you go 2 or you could go 1.5
Mhm.
or whatever you want to put in there.
Sure.
So you absolutely can put. And if you want to do 2, that's great too. So just say, hey, I don't want to ever go below that. And then here is where, for instance, in my case, where I did have a mat cutter, maybe I want to add an extra, maybe I don't want to add anything necessarily to the wholesale cost, but I do want to add an extra, $10 to every mat just to cover the cost.
That covers the lease price.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah, that covers the lease price. So that's going to be added on there. Now, if I'm adding that on there, I may want to add an extra service fee too for, the time it spends to cut the mat and storing it or whatever else. I can do that, or I can just leave it 0. Whatever you
So
think is
I can
best.
add a service fee to the really expensive stuff, right? So the
Right.
stuff that costs 50, 70,
Absolutely.
80, I wanna charge at least another $20
Yeah.
because
I don't think that's a bad idea at
stuff
all.
happens, right? I damage the
Yeah.
mat and boom, I gotta buy a new sheet right now.
Right. And especially if it's something that's like oversized or whatever, and
Oh,
you have to
forget it.
cut it
Yeah.
by hand and all those things. So, yeah, you can add in your service fee. And so I did here, this is an example of doing that descending markup. So I started with 5 and go down and all the way down. So 3 is the minimum. But you're right. If it's an expensive mat, maybe I want to add, $40 or 50
Sure.
bucks onto that.
Sure.
And then from here, we just go ahead and we update it. And then that can be my new default pricing for my mat board. Now you can see if this is being used. This is a cool thing that this does too. So right now, these are all my vendors for mat board that are using this pricing formula. But if I wanted to do a separate one for Peterborough or Rising, where I may be having to pay a little bit extra freight on that, I can absolutely do this. I could even, and to save me a little bit of time and work, I can even clone this and say, hey, I'm going to say no because I just want to do it for one, but this could be my Peterborough formula, and then I can change any markups or do anything I
Mhm.
want, and then just apply that just to Peterborough. So it's really cool the way that the pricing system is set up in here, and it's very easy to change if you need to. So, do you have any questions so far?
No, you make it sound easier
What
than
do
I
you
thought.
it is easy.
I should talk to
And
the developers. They did a good job.
they did do a good job. Man, that Mo and Aslan, they do an amazing job. No, and it really is. I'm being 100% sincere. And to be, full disclosure, Mo and I have a partnership where he does, he pays me a little money to work with his clients, but I help you get your pricing set up, and we can discuss, what your specific needs. And I love that you do that,
Yeah.
because so many framers are just in the dark, or they get set up and then they're like, I don't know what to do from here.
Yeah.
But it's the pricing here is very straightforward, very easy to understand, and it's going to get you where you need to go. Do you want to do glazing too, or is,
If you
is
have
this enough
time, I
for
want to
today?
do glazing because I have
Absolutely.
some questions about that as well.
Okay. So glazing, again, we're doing surface area, but glazing is a little different than mat board, because you can, and some framers, again, it just depends on what you want to do in your shop and what works best for you and what's most profitable for you. Some people sell, by the square inch, some people sell by the sheet. Usually selling by the sheet is in favor of the framer. So if you have, you can, the smallest size you can get for Optium acrylic is 16 by 20.
Hmm.
That's the smallest size I'm going to buy. I can't, in my little shop, I can't afford to buy a 48 by 96
Yeah.
$3,000 piece of Optium, and it's going to sit there. I only used, in my shop, my little shop, I only used it maybe 3 times a year. And so I want to buy the smallest piece of Optium that I can possibly buy, but the customer is going to have to pay for that whole sheet, because again, that
Even
sheet,
if
I
they're
don't.
buying a 5 by 7, you have to.
Right, you have to pay for that whole
Yeah.
sheet. And so that's where that's where it's a little bit more profitable. And so in the pricing, so Mo has listed, and this is, oh, let me just show you this, because this is a cool thing in Framing POS, again, that nobody else does. So here we've got your conservation clear glass, and Mo actually updates your glass pricing. So that is one advantage of many advantages, but this is one advantage that Framing POS has over any other POS system, because in every other POS system for framing that I know of on the market, you have to update your glass pricing. So you have to remember, every time there's a pricing update, you have to go into the back end of your POS and start changing all the prices again. And in this case, you don't have to worry about it. So it's kind of set it and forget it.
Yep.
If you want to bump it up. But this is an amazing thing. Now, if
Good.
there's sizes that you don't buy, you can turn these off and on and say, we're never going to buy 14 by 18. The smallest I'm ever going to go is 18 by 20. You can click that off, and then it's going to use that $5.68 wholesale cost on the 16 by 20 to do your pricing.
Yep.
So it's pretty cool. Or reverse. I never wanted to go, 48 by 68 is kind of big. We're missing a 40 by 60 in there. But yeah, so you can turn these things on, say, yeah, I don't want to go oversized in glass. If they go oversized, then we go up to acrylic.
Yep.
So it's really a cool thing that Framing POS does. And to do the pricing, same thing. Maybe we kind of like to have maybe a different markup based on the type or flavor of glass that we're selling. Again, it depends on your shop and it depends on your customers. You may want to sell more museum glass, but maybe the price is a little prohibitive if you're doing a 5 times markup on glass or something that might be a little too high. And so on museum glass, maybe you could have a little bit lower markup, but maybe a little bit higher. Um, let's take a look. Maybe a little bit higher service fee on it. So it's a pretty cool way. So this on museum glass, again, same thing. We have our minimum price to say I never want it to go below 2 times. Plus, on here I'm adding $1, but I might add $10 on here.
Yep.
And then you can, on here we're also adding in just an extra 15 bucks, and that might be for labor. If you ever get fingerprints on museum glass, if you know, you know.
If you know,
Um,
you know. I
so
know.
yeah. And then same thing. So we can say, hey, so for all my sheets that are 11 by 14, we're going to have a 3 times markup. Now in this particular formula, they're all the same, but maybe I want to have a little bit higher markup on the bigger stuff, like,
Yeah.
48 by 68 or 40 by 60. Maybe I want to do, a 4 times markup. And I probably want to have a higher set price. Let's make it 20,
I
because
would do
those
that
things.
because the chances of you damaging a bigger piece actually is higher because you're
Right.
dealing with a
And
decent
we've
share
all
of
done
glass.
it. I've lifted it up and been too
Yep.
far apart or too close to
Yep.
go snap right in the middle, and you're like, great, that just cost me $80,
Yep.
and hopefully I can get some other pieces out of it. But we've all done it, and yeah, and working with it, it's just a pain in the neck. It's more dangerous. These are the ones that get dropped more, just because they're heavy and hard to hold. So yeah. So those are things you can add in. So it's really a cool way to do it, and pretty simple.
So Sheila, I
Um,
got a question for you.
sure.
You know how Ken Bauer used to say, raise your prices on your conclair and lower your
hmm
glass the price so you can on museum, so you can sell more museum. What's your opinion in this situation?
I think museum glass is becoming more and more popular.
Hmm.
Um, so I don't know. Again, it kind of depends on your shop and what your customers are going to pay. My philosophy is I'm going to charge as much as my customer is willing to pay. Some people do mark it down a little bit. I know other framers, they have the same markup for museum as they do for conclair, and and they're making more money on it, and they're selling it. Especially, I think if you show it, if you put museum glass or optium in a shadow box, just a small little shadow box. I did it in my shop, and I people kept poking
Yeah, yeah.
it with their fingers, but they're like, "Is there even glass in there?" And it's like, "Yeah." They wanted it, and that sold it. So I don't know. I mean, again, it just kind of depends on your shop and what your customers are willing to pay. And by showing it, I think, and giving examples of it, when people see the difference, they're almost always going to choose that museum glass. And the nice thing is now too, um, AR-70 is kind of a good compromise too.
Yeah, I like that. Sure, sure.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
nice compromise. It's kind of the in betweener. So if they really like that museum glass, but don't, and Conclear, isn't the aesthetic that they want, then steer them into AR-70. It's still, 70% UV versus 99% UV. That's a decision the customer is going to have to make. If it was fine art, I'd probably try and steer them or educate the customer to the advantages of having a little bit higher, UV protection in there. But they can make the decision.
you
So,
know what I like about the AR-70? It's 2.5 mil. It's a
hmm
little thicker. When you're doing a 4060, the
hmm
2.5 mil makes a difference. You can feel it when you
hmm
when you lift the 2 milli and the 2.5. I
yeah,
can feel the difference.
yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
yeah. I don't know what percentage wise, but it's a decent difference. On a big piece,
Yeah,
it's perfect.
yeah, and it looks great.
Yeah,
Only framers can really tell the difference if they're laying side by side. Seriously, only as framers have the eye. I'm like, yeah, that's
yeah,
AR-70, but your average customer can't. And I think they're both beneficial to the art. Of course, museum's going to be a better choice, but and there's a few more, within the museum uh, set. There's a couple other options in between there too, for light and things like that. Most framers aren't dealing with that. Some super duper fine art or
yeah,
museum framers are dealing with that. In my little frame shop in Fairbanks, Alaska, not so much. So,
yeah. That's going to be about 80% of the frame
mhm,
shops anyway. Like you said, the 80/20 rule, right? The
right.
20% who are doing all the unique stuff, 80% of
Yeah,
the shop's going to be that.
yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to add? I think you answered most of my questions.
I think we did
And
great.
yeah,
The one thing you'd asked about, you brought up Ken Bauer, who I love and was amazing. The one thing too in your pricing that he did,
hold on. You want
he
to go back to your screen? Where's the screen? Hold
can you
on.
see it?
Yep, I got it.
So if you go into your settings, this is where you can add in peak pricing. So what we talked about at the beginning, where maybe I'm at a 2.5 times markup, but I can't really go up to a 2 or 3.5. That might make my customers flip out a little bit. But maybe I can go, I can do just an inflation pricing and say, hey, I'm going to raise all my prices right now by 20% or 30%. So I can bump it up just a little bit, or bump it up a little bit each month if I want to. And this makes it really simple to do it all across the board, and just make just a little bit extra in your margins. You can also do peak pricing. So the holidays are coming up,
Yeah.
and this is the idea that Ken Bauer gave me that I passed on to you,
Yeah.
which
This
was
is Sheila's idea.
which
I
was
loved it and we implemented it.
it was genius because Christmas time, I was sleeping, literally sleeping on the floor of my office on an air mattress because I was spending 20 hours a night from December 1st until December 23rd in my
Yeah.
shop. And, and I had a teenage boy and, trying to be mom and make Christmas magical, it just wasn't working. And so when I went to WCAF that following year, I asked Ken about that. I'm like, "Oh, I got to be there's got to be a better way." And he said, "Yeah, there is, idiot. This is how you do it." And he goes, "So, and again, my shops were in Alaska, so I started a little earlier than what you may want to, but I would say right about now, when you have customers coming in, ask them, hey, is this something you need done before Christmas? If they say yes, now let's go ahead and raise our prices from November. Let's just say, I'll go ahead and do it. So we got to turn it on here. So let's say from November 1st, and then we're going to turn that off on December and December
Sheila,
24th.
I would put a January 7 or 8 because I'm
Yeah,
closed from Christmas to then,
sure.
So the way this works, when you go to your work order and you select your due date, if it falls between these two dates, the peak pricing will take effect, and you can remove it if
Right.
you want to, but it will tell
So,
you, hey, peak
right.
pricing applied, and it will give you that.
So they're going to pay 20%, 25%
Sure.
more for everything. And I don't feel like that's gouging your customers. They're paying more because I usually had to hire at least one or two extra little frame shop helpers to help us because we were busy. I mean,
Yeah,
my
yeah, yeah.
counter was 4 people deep all day long, just trying to get those orders in and out. And so when people came in, I would just ask them, "Do you need this before Christmas?" If they said yes, wonderful. I didn't tell them you're going to pay. Well, you're paying 20% more there, buddy. I would be like, "Hey, okay, great. Here's your price." If they said no, "Nah, we're not. We're going to Hawaii. We're not going to be back until the middle of January." Fantastic. I'm going to give you a 15% discount. Now, discounts were rare in my shop, but in that case, but if I go 15%, they're actually just paying my regular retail
Yeah.
price. And then that way it helped me to organize my shop, and it also pushed a lot of jobs because I tell people, it's like, if you don't need it until after Christmas, I can save you 15% right now. If you
I
need it
like that
before
too.
Christmas, that's the way it's going to be.
And if they don't need it, they're gonna say, you know what, give me the discount.
Yeah, no
Yeah, yeah,
problem. But that also helped me, move some work into January, which was
yeah,
typically a really slow month for
yeah.
us. And so, and the nice thing is, it get those people coming back into January, and then they usually had something that they got for Christmas that they needed framed.
I like
So
that.
it worked out really well. So I love that you did this in,
That's your idea, Sheila.
yeah,
You brought these up, and the peak pricing, inflation pricing is totally your idea.
yeah. And inflation pricing, another thing, my rent always went up 3.5% every year.
Yeah.
And it would be like the end of January and I get my rent bill and I'd be like, oh, for Pete's sake, I forgot to increase my
Happy New Year.
prices. Yeah, that wasn't smart. So now you have it again, set it and forget it and just say, hey, I want to raise my prices. Maybe you want to consider to some things I factor in there would be, what's inflation this year? Usually inflation is around 3.5%. This year it might be a little higher. So just depending on what happens in the next few months. So maybe I want to raise my prices by 3.5%. And I'm going to start that on January 1st. And now I don't have to remember anymore. It's just going to automatically do it.
And you can always remove it. It tells you
Yeah.
inflation pricing applied, peak pricing
Yeah.
applied, and it allows you to exit. So if you exit, it's going to come out, and then you don't
Yeah.
have to show up there for
You
free.
can take it out. So it's
Thank you.
pretty cool. So it's a really cool thing.
Nice.
And that's why I do love the pricing formulas and systems that you have in Framing POS. I think they're especially value for money. I think it's a great way to go. And your clients usually learn this pricing really, really fast. It usually takes about an hour. And they're like, oh, okay, this is easy. You got it.
Yeah.
Whereas other POS systems, well, good, they're much more complicated and much more involved in getting those prices set up. So you've been able to do magic and make it easy to understand, easy to fix, and still very comprehensive and profitable for all framers. So
Thank you.
it's
And not that
really
you were
cool.
not, but now you made my Christmas list, Christmas card list.
Yay.
You make me feel so good. Thank you.
No, I think it's really good, and I think it's going to help a lot of framers with their pricing. And Yeah, things are rough right now. And if
Yeah,
you're not using a POS system,
you need to be.
really, really do it. Really consider
Anyone,
it.
anyone.
And this is a yeah, and this is a great system. If you haven't used a POS system, this is a great one to get your feet wet. And I think it's going to be just keep getting better and better too. I think
Yep.
where it's at right now is great, but Mo and Aslan, the developer, they're so great about adding some really cool little features in here that
Yeah,
I
we
think
add everything based on what people want. So,
it's just going to
you
get better
know,
and
yeah,
better.
yeah.
Yeah.
So whatever you need, we add it on, and we have 30-day free trial. So you
Yeah.
just sign up for 30 days. You don't like it, cancel within 30 days. You have to worry about
Mhm.
nothing. So you'd be all good.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Sheila?
I think we're good. Did I stop
Yeah.
sharing my screen? I can't remember. I don't know.
No, but I stopped the
Okay.
share screen.
Okay, great.
All right. So if you have nothing else to add, I want to thank you for your
Just say,
time.
yeah.
I
And
appreciate it. And
I work with I work with all of Mo's introductory customers and help folks. I also have my own. If you need to go deeper and really take a look at your numbers or whatever, you can contact me at my email below. I give a free hour in addition to the 2 hours that Mo takes care of for you in setting up your price, and I give a free hour to any free Framing POS customer. So that's worth $100. So
perfect.
yeah. So if you want to go over, figure out your profit margins or what they need to be or do a little bit deeper dive, I'm happy to do that. And I do all kinds of things. We can talk about production and streamlining, your productivity, going through all your numbers, especially, before inventory and taxes come up. I can help you get all those things sorted out so that it's going to make it a little bit smoother this year and in the years to come. So anything I can do to help make your shop be more profitable and productive, I'm super happy to do that anytime.
Perfect. Sheila, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much, Mo.